So, welcome back, everybody, to our latest Living Life Naturally podcast episode. I'm thrilled to have back with me today Kim Tang, who is going to finish her wonderful interview that we started last week. And as I told you then, Kim first discovered yoga several years ago, and it caused a fire to be lit within her to inspire others and to empower others in their ability to expand and transform their minds, their bodies, their relationships with themselves. And she is an internationally reputed master yoga teacher and head coach of the International Yoga Sports Federation. She is very well versed with all things with yoga and chakras. And we were in the middle of a conversation about chakras, and I'm really excited to continue on with that with Kim Tang. Before we bring her on, I do want to introduce my Living Life Naturally community. So I have a Facebook group called the Energized Healthy Women's Club, and we talk about all things holistic to do with health, to do with going through different stages of menopause and seasons of our lives. So ladies, just check out the link in the show notes, and please feel free to join us in there. We would love to have you. And so now I have the privilege of introducing again Kim Tang.
I'm going to introduce to you a concept that we're going to come to again when we get to the throat, right? Two outlets for expression, the womb and the throat. So are you able, if I say to you, trust on it, let me say it this way, honesty, there it is. Honesty is the deepest form of intimacy. We'll be saying that again. Honesty is the deepest form of intimacy. So if we are talking about the sacral center, the sex center in the form of intimacy, are you able to speak into a truth? Are you able to feel worthy of your needs being met? Are you able to even identify what your needs are? And if you identify your needs, are you able to impart them to a partner? Are you able to allow your needs to be met for yourself? So all of these questions about honesty as the deepest form of intimacy, can you even trust a partner? It's almost irrelevant if it's a same-sex couple, no matter the configuration, any and every intimate relationship in any and every form. Can you allow yourself to be vulnerable? Can you trust? And can you communicate your needs? So those are all also second chakra conversations. Let's pause there. And what do you want to put into that?
So with my British upbringing, never being allowed to speak about how you feel emotionally, although I have the most wonderful husband anybody could want, and we've been married years and years, I would say my biggest holdback is really being able to share how I truly feel. And some of that is not even knowing how I feel.
There it is. Okay, first of all, what you just said is beautiful and brilliant. So instead of us unpacking that and getting really big, we're going to come back to this conversation when we get to the throat, and then maybe I can equip you with some, not just you, all the viewers, with some tools about how you can and why you should. That's really, it's really important, because I also saw, Lynn, that on our pre-podcast notes, there's another question there, and that is, I put, what is a new agreement you've come to for yourself in your life? And that's going to answer what it is that I want to bless you and the viewers with. So let's bring that in and honor it, and know that we're going to expand that more fully. Okay, so let's move to the third chakra. It's right at the solar plexus. And remember, that was the first one that I opened in that deep back bend, where I really let it out, let loose on my good cry in the yoga class. And I want to tell you that energy center is your center. It is what I call the core of your being, but what I mean is your eternal being before this life and after. That is your life source and your life force. It has a color that is as yellow and fiery as the sun itself. And that is what I'm going to call the source of your power, the source of your strength. By the way, your ability to manifest. And so if you feel hopeless, helpless, victim, there's a lot of victim there, disempowered, unable to manifest, we're most likely talking about the third chakra. I am going to tell you, though, that I'll have to start introducing the interconnectedness between all the chakras, right? Because they work together in combinations that you'll start to see as you gather more information. So it's like, wait a minute, didn't you say something about that with the root? Definitely. They're both indications of, I'm going to call limiting beliefs, fear-based agreements that disempower you in multiple aspects of your being. So it can show up on different levels that we might center in different places in the body, something like that. So really, your ability to manifest, your vitality, your energy is seated right there at the solar plexus. I'm also going to say intuition. Listen to the way that this is kind of even inherent in the language that we've adapted. So people say like, oh, I have a gut feeling, and they're talking about intuition, right? Or they say something of it just kind of like referring to the stomach, right? And that's going to be right there at the third chakra center. So when you feel impending doom and you're like, oh, I'm just sick to my stomach, that is the third chakra. Yeah. So, yes, your thoughts, comments.
Well, yeah, I can so relate to that. Yes, because I think that for so long, when we've had those feelings, and especially as women, we tend to just push them aside. Well, for one, we don't want to deal with them if they're unpleasant. But I also know I'm intuitive. I also know that I do not like that feeling in the pit of my stomach if it's a negative thought or feeling.
Thank you. You said so many good things. I'm sure if you understand how like aligned and attuned you are to what's happening here. One thing you said is just the phrase as women, and true words. As women, we've adapted this like agreement of how we should be as women. And that blocks us from being fully expressed on every level. The first thing I want to tell you is actually another little story. And that is that, I guess I won't give specifics, but I was at a breathwork conference where I was a presenter, and all of the women were practitioners and facilitators were taking on a certain persona. Their persona appeared to be almost like overly sympathetic, almost like they had to talk with a whisper, a very soft voice, and they had to have a certain look on their face. And I felt like they were maybe playing a role as a woman. And I didn't resonate with it because it's not a match for me. I am not that. And I'm going to guarantee you that I am connected to every aspect of my feminine energy. So what I did when it was my opportunity to present is I presented all different versions of feminine energy, most certainly the Mother Teresa, compassionate, patient, kind, caregiving, and nurturing. But you also realize that we literally call the strongest force that we know of, the forces of nature, we call it Mother Nature, feminine energy. Mother Nature carved the Grand Canyon, right? Mother Nature is the tsunami, the earthquake that levels the earth. Mother energy, feminine energy can be very strong. And by the way, this is important, Lynne, not by mimicking masculine energy, not by seeming to be bossy or angry or anything like that. we can stand in our authority as a strong woman and speak into a truth without needing to express our own discomfort with authority, express our own discomfort by standing in our value in a place of command, by having to seem to be something that we're not. Did you hear what I was really saying about that? Feminine energy can be the most tender, and it can also be the most strong. And we don't need to disguise the energy as something that it's not. We only need to be comfortable with the energies within ourselves and stand in our authority and stand in our value to express it. Another thing is that this was really important. You used these words like women don't want to don't want to feel a feeling or speak into a truth if it is unpleasant. And we are definitely going to get to that fear-rooted pattern. That's going to be very important. So let's move to the heart. So we've had the root, we've had the sacral sex center, we've had the solar plexus. Now, number 4, we're going to the heart. And I want to tell you that the heart chakra has very little to do with romantic relationships, although all relationships come in different contexts, and that is included, but it's not exclusive to the heart. So the heart is less about special relationships, romantic relationships, and it's more about love of humanity. It's more about compassion, remember, for humanity and all living beings, the plants, the animals, and most especially each other. Remember that thing about not judging humanity? So if we say in a bigger conversation that there are only 2 choices here, one is fear and one is love, then we're going to rephrase fear as a cry for love. So now we only have love and a cry for love, for which the only appropriate response is love. And that resides in the heart, right? So it's with compassion. And by the way, in the highest aspect of the highest expression of the heart chakra, we would know in the way of compassion, and this is also going to be here, we would know that every single woman, every single human, in fact, has the right to be exactly as they are in the moment that they stand in, with what they've chosen to learn through everything they're up against in the form of limiting beliefs and agreements made in fear, right? They're encountering themselves in a moment that they are entitled to. And for us to realize that, know who they are in truth, and have a natural response of compassion. Compassion is the natural response of an awakened heart, of an awakened and balanced heart chakra.
Yeah. Okay, I can't wait to get to the throat chakra.
Here we are. And this is so now we're going to start to kind of encompass all of them, because do you remember, like a few minutes ago, you said to me, you were talking about just being able to speak into a truth. And then you said to even know what that truth is, to even recognize and identify. Now you're talking about the throat, but I cannot help but connect the throat and the heart, because listen to how closely they are connected. By the way, the heart chakra in the context of, by the way, self-love, self-love, self-love. So let's spend a minute here, because this is probably the biggest one that the most people receive the most benefit from understanding, the biggest change you can make in your life. And I'm going to say that it starts with caring about how you feel. So let's get deep into this one. You have to start by simply caring about how you feel. And by the way, so that refers back to the heart, right? And self-love. And paying attention to how you feel, because how can you know? Okay, so I want to just make some quick notes. Okay, so the first and most important thing is to actually understand how you feel about something. Now, there's something unique, well, two things, highly unique about literally humans as opposed to animals. The first thing is that we have a central nervous system that is literally in response to our thoughts. So you can think of something, maybe something traumatic that happened in the past, and have a panic attack or anxiety, or feel anger, resentment, disappointment, whatever it is, and have a response to that through your central nervous system. You can also have the projection of that thing in the past into the future and have anxiety that it might happen again. And then you're kind of like living in fear of this thing happening. And by the way, anxiety is a projection into the future. Things like resentment are going back to the past. So we start to understand that our feelings are rooted in not being in pure time presence. But the second thing that is unique to humans about the central nervous system, not so much about the central nervous system, about, let me say it this way, about the ways that we mask our authenticity. This is super important. All feelings are valid, all of them. All feelings are important information. So, and they speak into what actually is my truth. So what we do is we notice that we have this feeling. And by the way, we can now start to discern that maybe that feeling is kind of in the heart, maybe that feeling is kind of in the gut, but we start to notice we have this feeling. But you know what we do? Instead of honoring ourselves in the form of our emotional guidance system, instead of that, we shut ourselves down. We mask our authenticity and we say, here it is, I shouldn't feel that way. I should just be happy. I shouldn't feel that way. I should just be grateful. And most especially, even though I feel this way, I shouldn't say anything about it. So we literally mask our authenticity and hold ourselves in a place of unhappiness because of fear. Now, why, if something is not okay with us, why are we not able to connect to our truth, come from love, and feel safe to say? And I want to actually unpack each one of those things because they all mean something and matter. Connect to our truth means honor that feeling, listen to our energy center that tells us, I'm very aligned with this. It makes me happy. It feels natural and comfortable for me, versus this is not okay with me. I don't like this. It's not who I am. It's not what I choose. We don't listen to our feelings. So we need to connect to our truth, which means listen to our feelings and care about how we feel, care about ourselves as much as we care about the one with whom we're sharing what's an extraordinary truth, which is what I call the ones that are the hardest to speak into. So number one, to connect to your truth, to feel your feeling, understand your feeling, care about your feeling. And when I say come from love and feel safe to say, the reason I say come from love is because remember when I said to you, and this is not limited to women, this is people in general. Sometimes people are so uncomfortable speaking into a truth that they feel that they have to muster up some combative energy. Like they let it build, they let it build, they let it build, and then they blow. They blurt it out, or they talk a little too loud from a room away so that they'll be overheard, or very indirect. They tell someone who they know will tell someone. Yeah. Do you see how indirect we are? Because we're uncomfortable with honesty. What in the world? Because honesty is the deepest form of intimacy. I want to stay right here at the throat. And I said to you, connect to your truth. I'm pointing to my heart here. Connect to your truth, come from love, and feel safe to say, is the way, remember I told you we would circle back around, is the way that honesty is the deepest form of intimacy. So let's say that you are speaking into a truth with your partner, either about caring about your needs, and there's something that you really want that you're afraid to say and the need's not being met, or the opposite, something's not okay with you and you're afraid to say. And by the way, why are people afraid to say? They're afraid to say because they're afraid they might lose something. That is what it is, but that comes in many different forms. Sometimes you're afraid you're going to lose what you perceive of as stability and or security, whether it's within a job setting, whether it's within a relationship setting. And when you are deeply rooted in a place of familiarity, like a relationship or a family environment, then this is such an important part of your identification, self-identification, that you can't imagine losing that sense of who you are, who you identify as in the context of that workplace, that family, and so on and so on. So sometimes we're afraid of losing stability, security. So, oh, I just won't say anything. Sometimes we're afraid of somebody else's response to our truth, somebody else's anger, somebody else's disapproval. What we're afraid of is their response, that it might change the way that they perceive us. So we just don't say anything. And sometimes we're afraid of losing an aspect of ourselves that we value by speaking into a truth. So it gets pretty tricky, but there is only one reason. Okay, there's only one reason why we don't connect to our truth, come from love, and feel safe to say, and that's fear. So when we're going back again and again to throat chakra, I like to call this what I'm going to call spiritual integrity. And here's what I mean by this. And here's how you can really kind of discern in that throat chakra, if it's open, if it's balanced, if it's blocked. How many times do people think one thing and say something different, or think one thing and don't say it, or say one thing and do something different, right? So these are all indications of kind of a blocked or imbalanced throat chakra. Spiritual integrity in your life would look like everything I've said. Let me paint a beautiful picture here. Caring about how you feel enough to pay attention to your feelings, connect to that truth, come from love, and feel safe to say, so that the thoughts and the words and the actions are all in harmony. They're in integrity. They match. So, and I also did want to, you can just see how much is going on here. We can have this much conversation about each and every one of the chakras. I want to tell you also that when you are connecting to your truth, coming from love, and feeling safe to say, then your partner or anyone with whom you're able to express such a high level of, such a high way of being honest. And by the way, from your self-respect, from your self-love. And by doing it this way, connecting to the truth, coming from love, and feeling safe to say, you're showing them your respect. You're showing them your love. And then even when you're communicating something that might seem so difficult to speak into, they're like, oh my God, I appreciate this so much. I feel that she respects me. I value this, right? So this is the way in which honesty is the deepest form of intimacy, because that level of honesty lays down a foundation of pure trust. And you have to have trust to have intimacy. Remember, we were talking about the womb space too in the same conversation. So you can start to see how they're all related. And when you can, care about how you feel, connect to your truth, come from love, as much love for yourself as the one with whom you're sharing, then you're actually even also able to do that better with intimacy and things like that.
Yeah, awesome. So now we get to the final chakra, correct? Yep.
Yes. So this is what they call the third eye. This is the eye that sees from a higher perspective of who we are in truth as an aspect of the Creator in form. The divine in me sees, honors, and recognizes that which is the same within you. So the third eye is a way of being and seeing, not with the olfactory senses, but maybe with the 4 pillars of spiritual integrity. So non-judgment, pure compassion, true union, non-attachment, which means pure time presence, non-reaction, which is a function of ego activating the past into the present moment, and non-resistance, which is a conversation that I call saying yes to your life in each and every moment. So I'm going to say that all of the chakras, the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, being open, free flowing, and in harmony result in the third eye being open. So it's kind of walking the earth in self-realization of what I am going to call God is, whatever you refer to that as: universal intelligence, source, purple sunset, love, pure truth, anything that you consider a life force and source. So we can keep that simple. I know that you have an interest in the timing, but that being open is the natural response of the others being open.
Yeah.
And then finally, the crown is what I'm going to call, remember at the very beginning, I said to you, rooted between the core and the cosmos, tethered between the core and the cosmos, with your feet firmly planted on the earth, and then your crown open to receiving from the collective. And so that is a divine aspect of us where we are connected to all living things, where we are receiving information of everything that has ever happened, will ever happen, knowing who we are in truth, and that we as vibrational transmitters and receivers can access this. Yeah,
it's all very fascinating. You just don't realize how, I know people can read energy. I was on a call recently where somebody just right off the bat was able to give me some insights. So I know that when we talk about the chakras, it's going a lot deeper into that. And I would imagine it really can result in some intense work in us.
definitely. So what does that all amount to in a life? If I had a closing thought on the entire conversation and the answer to your question is, what is the new set of agreements that I've come to for myself in my life? And this is what I want for myself, for my partner, for my adult children, and for the whole of humanity, is that we are what I am going to call fully expressed on every level of being, of our most authentic truth in its fullest expression. So here's what I mean by that. You and I have a conversation, and you make a contribution. You say something to me. I receive you. I filter it through my perception, and I decide, what will I offer? What will my contribution be in exchange? That's going to be a very high contribution coming from a place of, being very conscious and coming from love. And I'm going to take my thought contribution and I'm going to put it in a box with a bow. I'm going to wrap it neatly, lovingly, and properly. And I'm going to say, here, this is for you. And then you filter that through your perception. And then you go, here, this is for you. And that's what I call the outpicturing of a consciousness. So to be fully expressed in the outpicturing of my consciousness, which means there is nothing that I am afraid to say. I get to decide the gift that I will give. To be fully expressed on the level of the heart with the feelings, to be fully expressed on the level of the spirit. And by the way, the most important part here is to be absolutely positively received, seen, held, loved, and cherished for everything that you expressed through the outpicturing of the consciousness, which is the level of the mind, the heart, and the feelings and spirit. And when you do have a partner in a romantic relationship who is able to fully receive your most authentic contributions on the level of the mind, the heart, and the feelings, the spirit, then the physical expression of that is a natural response. I left out the most important word, maybe. the physical expression of that connection that you feel, connection by being fully expressed on every level and loved for your contribution, the physical connection is the natural response of that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's my blessing. That's what I want for me. It's what I want for you. It's what your husband wants for himself and for you. Everybody wants this.
Right, right.
So we have to do the work to be the example for others to follow. And I'm going to tell you that the more that you can trust that honesty is the deepest form of intimacy and have that connection and speak into it, the more you're modeling for him that he can do the same. And then the relationship just kind of opens and deepens from there.
Awesome. So please do tell our listeners where they can find you.
Thank you. All roads lead to kimtangyoga.com. That's the shortest answer. My life is like a Venn diagram. And what that means is two circles side by side, except there's an overlap in the middle. So on one side of the circle is all things yoga. And on the other side of the circle is all things spirit. And most people understand that the two are one and the same. So I have yoga, spirit, and I also, we have a small private event center for the healing arts and spiritual sciences up in the high desert, Joshua Tree area of Southern California. And that happens to also be a Y and an S. We didn't plan that. It's Yucca Shala. Yoga, Spirit, Yucca Shala. Those are both .coms. And then you can also find all of those on social media. So there are any number of ways that you can learn from me and that I can support you in your expansion. So go onto that website, get on my email list, contact me directly, and we'll go from there. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Just such a lot to share. So I appreciate it. And everybody, just want to remind you that I would love to get on one of my free consultation calls with you, because to me, your health is very important and your longevity in life. So you will find my information in the show notes as well as Kim's information. So I would love to connect with you and have a conversation. We hope that you have an awesome day. Thank you for joining us. And this has just been a really great podcast, and I appreciate you, Kim. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
You have been listening to the Living Life Naturally podcast, where we're on a mission to inform, inspire, and encourage women to live their best life confidently, joyfully, and freely from what's been holding them back. For show notes and free resources, visit holistic-healthandwellness.com. And I'd be delighted if you'd follow us on socials to connect further. If you enjoyed this show, why not share it with your friends? If you found good value, chances are they will too. And of course, a 5-star review on iTunes is always greatly appreciated, as much as I appreciate you listening. So until next time, live life naturally and joyfully.